The UHS Defiant drifted in the empty space between stars, its hull dark and silent. To anyone watching from far away, the ship looked broken and helpless. Its engines were cold, its weapons powered down, and no lights showed through its windows. But looks can be very deceiving inside the ship. Commander Kyle Barnes sat in his command chair, watching the scanner displays with calm eyes. He had been waiting for 6 hours, and his patience was about to pay off. The alien ships were coming, just as he had hoped they would. "Commander, I'm picking up 3 ships on long-range scanners," said Lieutenant Amy Ross from her position at the communications station. Her voice was steady and professional, but Kyle could hear the excitement underneath. "They're moving in formation, coming straight for us," Kyle nodded slowly. "Good. How long until they reach us?" "About 20 minutes at their current speed," Amy replied. She adjusted her controls and added, "They're scanning us pretty hard. I'm reading multiple sensor sweeps." "Let them look," Kyle said with a small smile. "Chief Morgan, are you keeping our power levels hidden?" From the engineering station, Chief Pete Morgan looked up and grinned. "Like a ghost ship, Commander." "Oh, they're seeing is emergency power and life support. Everything else looks shut down." Kyle stood up and walked to the main viewing screen. The 3 alien ships were still too far away to see, but he knew they were there. The Zephyrians had been watching human space for months, studying them from a distance. They thought humans were primitive and violent, but they were curious about human technology. That curiosity was about to get them into more trouble than they could imagine. "Amy, patch me through to Captain Grant on the secondary bridge," Kyle ordered. The screen flickered and Captain Lisa Grant appeared. She was in the hidden command center deep inside the ship, surrounded by monitors and tactical displays. Behind her, Kyle could see other crew members working quietly at their stations. "Kyle, are you ready for this?" Lisa asked. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp and focused. "As ready as we'll ever be," Kyle replied. "The fish are taking the bait." "How are your infiltration teams?" "Sergeant Collins has his Marines in position. Dr. Ford and her medical team are ready to play dead. Everyone knows their roles." Lisa paused and looked directly at Kyle. "Are you sure about this plan?" "Once we start, there's no going back," Kyle nodded firmly. "We need to know what these aliens can do. This is our chance to study them while they think they're studying us. Besides, they picked the wrong ship to mess with." The UHS Defiant was not an ordinary human warship. It had been built specifically for missions like this one. Every corridor had hidden passages, every room had secret compartments, and every crew member had been trained for situations exactly like this. The ship looked like a standard cruiser from the outside, but inside it was a fortress designed to fight even when boarded by enemies. "Commander, the alien ships are getting closer," Amy reported. "I'm reading massive energy signatures. These ships are big, and they're loaded with science equipment." Kyle returned to his command chair. "Perfect. The more scientists they bring, the better." "Sergeant Collins, are you monitoring this?" "Yes, sir," came the reply over the comm system. Sergeant Jake Collins was hidden in a maintenance shaft near the main airlock with 20 of his best Marines. "My boys are ready to give these aliens a warm welcome when the time comes." The 3 Zephyrian ships were now visible on the main screen. They were sleek and elegant, with smooth curves and glowing panels. They looked more like floating laboratories than warships, which was exactly what they were. The aliens had come to study, not to fight. They had no idea what they were walking into. "Sir, they're hailing us," Amy said, her hand hovering over the communication controls. "Don't answer," Kyle ordered. "Dead ships don't take calls, but keep monitoring their communications. I want to know what they're saying to each other." Amy nodded and adjusted her equipment. After a moment, she looked up with surprise. "Commander, they're not trying very hard to contact us. It's like they don't want us to wake up. They're talking about boarding procedures and scientific protocols." Kyle smiled coldly. "They think we're helpless. They want to come aboard and poke around while we're unconscious. How convenient for them." The alien ships moved closer, taking positions around the Defiant. Kyle could see smaller craft being launched from their main ships. Boarding shuttles, packed with scientists and researchers, all eager to get their hands on human technology. Chief Morgan, remember to keep those false readings steady, Kyle said. I want them to think we're barely alive. No problem, Commander, Pete replied. I've got fake damage reports ready to go. As far as they know, we're leaking atmosphere and our engines are fried. Dr. Nina Ford's voice came over the com from the medical bay. Commander, my team is ready. We've got biosensors that will make us look unconscious or dead. The aliens won't be able to tell the difference. Good work, Doctor. Remember, no matter what they do to you, stay in character. Don't react unless they actually try to hurt someone. Kyle walked to the tactical station and looked at the display showing the ship's internal layout. Red dots marked the positions of his crew members throughout the ship. Every person had a role to play in what was about to happen. The aliens thought they were going to examine a human warship, but they were about to get examined themselves. Commander, the first boarding shuttle is approaching our main airlock, Amy reported. They're requesting permission to dock. Granted, Kyle said. But make it look automatic, like an emergency system. We don't want them to think anyone's awake to give permission. The sound of the airlock cycling echoed through the ship. Kyle could picture the aliens in their environmental suits, carefully checking the atmosphere before entering. They would be excited, thinking they had found the perfect opportunity to study human technology up close. All stations, this is Commander Barnes, Kyle announced over the ship's internal communication system. The guests are arriving. Remember, we are a disabled ship with an unconscious crew. Stay in character and wait for my signal. This is going to be a very educational experience for everyone involved. Kyle sat back in his command chair and watched as the alien boarding parties entered his ship. They moved carefully, scanning everything with their advanced equipment. They had no idea that every step they took was being monitored. Every word they spoke was being recorded, and every piece of technology they brought with them was being analyzed by hidden sensors. The Zephyrians had wanted to examine a human warship. Kyle Barnes was about to give them exactly what they wanted, but not in the way they expected. The examination was about to begin, but the roles of student and teacher were about to be reversed in ways the aliens could never imagine. As the first alien team disappeared into the ship's corridors, Kyle allowed himself a small smile. The hunt was on, and the prey had just walked into the trap. The first Zephyrian boarding team stepped carefully through the airlock of the HS Defiant. Dr. Kexhai led the group, his forearms moving gracefully as he operated multiple scanning devices at once. Behind him, 3 other scientists followed, their large eyes wide with excitement as they recorded everything they saw. The human ship was darker than they expected. Emergency lighting cast red shadows on the walls, and the air felt thick and stale. To the Zephyrians, it looked exactly like a ship that had been drifting in space for days with a dying crew. Fascinating, Dr. Kexhai whispered into his recording device. The human construction methods are so crude, yet so effective. Look at these corridor walls. They are 3 times thicker than necessary for a ship this size. What Dr. Kexhai did not know was that Sergeant Jake Collins was watching him from a hidden compartment just 2 meters above his head. The Marine had been waiting in the maintenance shaft for over an hour, and he could hear every word the alien spoke. His translation device was picking up their language and converting it to English in his earpiece. Jake smiled to himself as he listened. The aliens thought human engineering was crude, but they had no idea why the walls were so thick. Those walls contained hidden passages, weapon storage, and defensive positions. Every corridor in the ship was designed to become a battlefield if needed. Team Alpha, proceed to the bridge, came the voice of Research Prime Veltar from the alien command ship. Team Beta, investigate the engineering section. Team Gamma, examine the crew quarters. Remember, we want detailed scans of everything. Doctor. Kexhai's team was Team Alpha. They moved slowly down the main corridor toward the bridge, stopping every few meters to scan the walls and ceiling. Their equipment beeped and hummed as it recorded data about human technology. In the secondary bridge, Captain Lisa Grant watched their progress on multiple screens. The ship's internal sensors were tracking every alien movement, and hidden cameras were recording everything. She spoke quietly into her headset to Commander Barnes on the main bridge. "Kyle, they're splitting up just like we expected. Team Alpha is heading your way. Team Beta is going to engineering where Pete is waiting. Team Gamma is moving toward the crew quarters where half our people are pretending to be unconscious." "Perfect," Kyle replied. "How are they reacting to the ship's design?" "They think we're primitive," Lisa said with a quiet laugh. "They have no idea what they're looking at. Dr. Kexhai just called our blast doors unnecessarily heavy. He doesn't realize they're designed to stop boarding parties." Meanwhile, Team Beta had reached the engineering section. The lead scientist, Dr. Hexmore, was amazed by what he saw. The human engines were massive and powerful, but they looked almost ancient compared to Zephyrian technology. He could not understand why humans built everything so big and heavy. Chief Pete Morgan was lying on the floor near the main engine console, his eyes closed and his breathing shallow. He had used a medical device to slow his heart rate and lower his body temperature. To the aliens, he looked like he was dying from oxygen deprivation. "Poor creature," Dr. Hexmore said to his team. "This human appears to be in the final stages of system failure. His species is so fragile, Pete had to fight hard not to smile." Fragile was the last word anyone would use to describe a human engineer, who had survived 3 wars and could bench press twice his body weight. But he lay perfectly still and let the alien scientist wave scanning devices over his body. Team Gamma had found the crew quarters, where they discovered what looked like dozens of unconscious humans. Dr. Ford was among them, lying on a medical bed with fake monitoring equipment attached to her arms. She had injected herself with a drug that would make her appear unconscious to alien scanners. The Zephyrian scientist examining her, Dr. Yelkos, was fascinated by human biology. "Look at this muscle density," he said to his assistants. "And these bone structures? This species is built for violence, not exploration. How did they ever develop space travel?" Dr. Ford wanted to tell him that humans developed space travel because they were curious and determined, not despite being strong. But she remained perfectly still, even when the alien's cold scanning device touched her skin. Back on the main bridge, Dr. Kexhai's team had finally arrived. They stood in the doorway, amazed by what they saw. The human bridge was nothing like Zephyrian command centers. Instead of elegant curves and soft lighting, everything was angular and harsh. The chairs looked like weapons, and the control panels were covered with switches and buttons. "Incredible," Dr. Kexhai breathed. "It looks like a military bunker, not a ship's bridge. These humans expect to fight even while commanding their vessels." Commander Kyle Barnes was slumped in his command chair, his head tilted to one side and his eyes closed. He had practiced this pose for hours, learning to breathe so slowly that he appeared to be unconscious. The alien scanners showed his life signs as barely detectable. Dr. Kexhai approached the human commander carefully. "This must be their leader," he said to his team. "Notice the scars on his hands and face. The species has clearly evolved through constant warfare." Kyle had gotten those scars in training exercises and accidents. Not warfare, but he let the alien scientist make his assumptions. Every wrong conclusion the Zephyrians reached would be useful information for humanity. "Sir," one of Dr. Kexhai's assistants called out, "I'm detecting some unusual readings from the ship's computer systems. There are data cores here that I've never seen before." "Excellent," Dr. Kexhai replied. "Begin downloading everything you can. We need to understand how these primitive beings achieved faster-than-light travel." What the aliens did not know was that the computer systems they were accessing contained false information. The humans had prepared fake technical specifications, false crew records, and misleading tactical data. Every file the Zephyrians downloaded was designed to make them underestimate human capabilities. Lieutenant Amy Ross was at her communications station, also pretending to be unconscious. She could hear the aliens talking, and she was fighting not to laugh. They were so confident, so sure that they were studying helpless primitives. They had no idea that every word they spoke was being recorded and analyzed. Team leaders report. Your status, came the voice of Research Prime Veltar from the alien command ship. Team Alpha reporting, Dr. Kexhai replied. We have reached the bridge and are examining the command structure. The humans appear to be in deep unconsciousness, possibly dying. We should have several hours to complete our studies. Team Beta reporting, Dr. Hexmore added. The engineering section is fascinating. Their power systems are crude but effective. We are downloading technical specifications now. Team Gamma reporting, Dr. Yelkos concluded. We have found approximately 40 unconscious humans in various stages of system failure. We are collecting biological samples and conducting detailed scans. Research Prime Veltar was pleased. Excellent work, all teams. Continue your examinations. This is a unique opportunity to study this aggressive species up close. In the secondary bridge, Captain Lisa Grant looked at her chronometer. The aliens had been aboard for 2 hours, and they were becoming more confident by the minute. They were spreading out through the ship, examining everything they could find. Soon it would be time to spring the trap. She opened a communication channel to all human crew members. All hands, this is Captain Grant. Phase 1 is complete. The subjects have taken the bait and are now fully committed. Prepare for Phase 2 on my command. Throughout the ship, 200 human crew members received the message. They remained perfectly still, continuing to play their roles as unconscious or dying spacers, but inside they were all smiling. The aliens wanted to examine a human warship, and they were about to get exactly what they asked for. The examination was going very well, but not for the reasons the Zephyrians thought. The examination had been going on for 3 hours when Dr. Kexhai made his first big mistake. He was studying Commander Kyle Barnes more closely, using a small device to scan the human's brain activity. The readings confused him because they showed more activity than he expected from an unconscious being. Curious, Dr. Kexhai muttered to his assistant. This human's neural patterns are unusual. Perhaps their species remains partially aware even during system failure. Kyle could hear every word, but he kept his breathing slow and steady. His training had taught him how to control his heart rate and brain waves, but the alien scanners were more advanced than he had expected. He would have to be very careful. In the medical bay, Dr. Yelkos was becoming more bold with his examinations. He had been taking readings and scans for hours, but now he wanted actual samples. He approached the bed where Dr. Nina Ford was lying, pulling out a small cutting device. I need tissue samples from this specimen, Dr. Yelkos told his team. The muscle fibers are unlike anything we have seen before. A small sample will not harm the creature. Dr. Ford felt the alien approach her bed. She could smell the strange scent of his environment suit and hear the soft hum of his equipment. When she felt the cold touch of metal against her arm, every muscle in her body wanted to react. But she forced herself to remain still. The cutting device pierced her skin, and Dr. Ford felt a sharp pain. It was not enough to cause real damage, but it was definitely enough to wake up any truly unconscious person. The alien scientist watched his instruments carefully, expecting to see some reaction from the human. What he got was more than he bargained. For Dr. Ford's eyes snapped open like two blue flames. Her hand shot out faster than the alien could react, grabbing Dr. Yelkos by the throat of his environment suit. The Zephyrian scientist made a choking sound of surprise and terror. Hello? There, Dr. Ford said in a calm, friendly voice. I don't think we've been properly introduced. The sound of Dr. Yelkos' panic alarm echoed through the ship. Every Zephyrian team heard it, and every human crew member smiled. It was the signal they had been waiting for. All hands, Commander Barnes's voice suddenly boomed through. The ship's communication system. This is Commander Kyle Barnes of the USS Defiant. Welcome aboard, gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed your examination so far, because now it's our turn. Throughout the ship, 200 human crew members opened their eyes at the same moment. The Zephyrians watched in horror as the dying humans sat up, stood up, and began moving with perfect coordination. It was like watching corpses come back. to life. Dr. HFY stumbled backward from Commander Barnes's command chair as the human officer stood up and stretched like he had just woken up from a comfortable nap. Surprised? Kyle asked with a wide grin. Don't be. We've been awake the whole time. Lieutenant Amy Ross activated her communication station, and suddenly every screen on the bridge lit up with tactical displays. The ship's true power readings appeared, showing that the Defiant had been operating at full capacity all along. The emergency power readings had been completely false. Impossible, Dr. HFY whispered. Our scanner showed you were unconscious. Your life signs were minimal. Kyle walked over to the alien scientist, moving with the easy confidence of a predator. Your scanner showed you what we wanted them to show you. Did you really think a species that conquered half the galaxy in 50 years would be that easy to fool? In the engineering section, Chief Pete Morgan was explaining the same thing to Dr. Hexmore. The alien scientist watched in amazement as the human engineer brought the ship's main systems online with casual efficiency. You see, Doctor, Pete said. As he worked, we build our ships to fight even when boarded. Every system has backups, every corridor has defensive positions, and every crew member is trained for combat. You didn't just board a ship, you walked into a fortress. The lights throughout the ship changed from emergency red to normal white. Blast doors that had been hidden in the walls suddenly became visible as they sealed different sections of the ship. The Zephyrians realized they were now trapped in separate compartments with humans who were very much alive and very much in control. Sergeant Jake Collins dropped down from his hiding place in the ceiling, landing directly behind Dr. HFY's assistant. 20 more Marines appeared from hidden positions throughout the ship, all armed and all smiling in a way that made the aliens very nervous. Gentlemen, Sergeant Collins said politely, I'm going to have to ask you to put down your equipment and place your hands where we can see them. This is now a military operation. Dr. Hexmore looked around the engineering section with new understanding. The crude human construction suddenly made sense. The thick walls contained hidden passages. The heavy blast doors were designed to stop boarding parties. The oversized corridors allowed for defensive positions. Every aspect of the ship's design was built for war. Your species, Dr. Hexmore said to Chief Morgan, you do not build ships to explore. You build ships to conquer. Pete shook his head. Wrong again, Doc. We build ships to survive. There's a big difference between conquering and making sure nobody conquers you. Captain Lisa Grant emerged from the secondary bridge and walked through the corridors of her ship. The Zephyrians stared at her with confusion and fear. They had detected no life signs from the secondary bridge, yet she had obviously been there the entire time, watching and coordinating. How? Dr. HFY asked when he saw her. How did you hide from our sensors? Lisa smiled. Trade secret. But I'll give you a hint. We've been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know how to hide, how to deceive, and how to turn apparent weakness into strength. You wanted to study us, so we let you, but we were studying you right back. The aliens began to understand the full scope of what had happened to them. The humans had not been helpless victims. They had been hunters, using themselves as bait to lure incurious prey. Every moment of the examination had been controlled and planned. This entire encounter, Research Prime Veltar-S voice came over. The communication system from his ship, was it all a deception? Commander Barnes answered him directly. Not a deception, Prime, an education. You wanted to examine a human warship, and we obliged. You wanted to study our technology, our biology, our capabilities. Well, now you have. The question is, what are you going to do with what you've learned? Dr. Ford released her grip on Dr. Yelko's, but kept him within arm's reach. I should mention, she said conversationally, that I'm not just the ship's doctor. I'm also a combat medic with 3 tours of duty in the frontier wars. I know 17 different ways to disable someone without killing them. Please keep that in mind. The Zephyrians were beginning to realize that they had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed that humans were primitive and easy to understand. Instead, they had discovered a species that was far more dangerous and sophisticated than their initial assessments had suggested. "What do you want from us?" Dr. Kexhai asked. Kyle Barnes sat back down in his command chair, completely relaxed. "Right now, Doctor, we want to continue the examination. But this time, we'll be asking the questions. You wanted to study us, fair enough. Now we want to study you. The only difference is we're going to be honest about it." The aliens looked around at the humans surrounding them and realized their situation had completely reversed. They had come to examine a human warship, and now they were the ones being examined. The hunters had become the hunted, and the lesson was just beginning. Research Prime Veltar stared at his command screens in complete shock. The 3 boarding teams under his command were now prisoners on the human ship, and everything he thought he knew about this species had just been proven wrong. The Defiant was not a disabled vessel at all. It was a predator that had been hunting his research fleet. "Sir," his communications officer said with a shaking voice, "the human ship is powering up weapon systems. Energy readings are off our charts." Veltar watched as the Defiant transformed before his eyes. Weapon ports that had been hidden opened along the hull. Shield generators that had shown no power signatures suddenly blazed to life. The ship that had looked like a dying whale now revealed itself to be a shark with very sharp teeth. "Impossible," Veltar whispered. "Our sensors showed minimal power. Their engines were cold, their weapons offline." "Sir," another officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel." Commander Kyle Barnes appeared on the main screen of the Zephyrian flagship. He was sitting comfortably in his command chair, looking completely relaxed despite having just captured 3 teams of alien scientists. Behind him, the bridge of the Defiant hummed with activity as human crew members worked at their stations. "Research Prime Veltar," Kyle said with a polite smile. "I believe we need to have a conversation. Your people are safe aboard my ship, but their situation has changed somewhat. They came here to study us, and we're happy to continue that education. However, the curriculum has been updated." Veltar found his voice after a moment of stunned silence. "What do you want, human?" "What we want is simple," Kyle replied. "We want to understand each other better. Your people have been watching us for months, studying us from a distance, making assumptions about our capabilities. We thought it was time for a more direct exchange of information." Captain Lisa Grant stepped into view behind Kyle. She was holding a data pad with information about Zephyrian technology that had been scanned from their equipment. "Your scientists brought some very interesting devices aboard our ship," she said. "We've learned quite a bit about your capabilities in the last few hours. Fair is fair, don't you think?" On the Defiant, Dr. Ford was conducting her own examination of Dr. Yelkos. The Zephyrian scientist sat in a chair in the medical bay, surrounded by human equipment that was scanning him just as thoroughly as he had tried to scan the humans. "Fascinating," Dr. Ford said as she reviewed the readings. "Your species has 4 arms, but your muscle density is much lower than ours. Your bones are hollow, like a bird's. You're built for speed and agility, not strength. That explains why you found our ship design so puzzling." Dr. Yelkos looked uncomfortable as the human doctor studied him. "This is not proper scientific protocol," he complained. "You should have requested permission before conducting these examinations." Dr. Ford raised an eyebrow. "Like you requested permission before trying to cut pieces off me?" "Don't worry, Doctor. I'm being much more careful with you than you were planning to be with us." In the engineering section, Chief Pete Morgan was giving Dr. Hexmore a tour of human technology. The alien scientist was amazed by what he saw. The human systems were not crude at all. They were robust, redundant, and designed to keep working even under extreme conditions. "Your power systems," Dr. Hexmore said with growing respect, "they have multiple backup generators, redundant control systems, and emergency protocols I never imagined. This is not primitive technology. This is technology designed by a species that expects to be attacked." Pete nodded as he showed the alien around the engine room. "Every human ship is built to fight and keep fighting. We learned a long time ago. That space is dangerous, and the only way to survive is to be tougher than whatever wants to kill you. But why? Dr. Hexmore asked. Why do you assume you will be attacked? The galaxy is vast. There is room for everyone. Pete looked at the alien scientist with something like pity. Doc, in the 3,000 years of recorded human history, we've had maybe 50 years of total peace. War is what we know. It's what we're good at. And it's what keeps us alive when species like yours decide they want to examine us. Meanwhile, Sergeant Jake Collins was having his own conversation with Dr. Kexhias' assistant, a young Zephyrian named Zekvil. The alien was clearly terrified of the human marine, who was built like a walking tank and carried enough weapons to outfit a small army. Please, Zekvil said, we meant no harm. We were only conducting scientific research. Jake sat down across from the alien, his massive frame filling the chair. Kid, let me explain something to you. In human culture, conducting scientific research on someone without their permission is called torture. The fact that you didn't mean any harm doesn't make it better. It makes it worse because it means you didn't even think of us as people. Zekval's large eyes grew even wider. But your species is so violent. We assumed you would not cooperate with peaceful research, Jake laughed, but it was not a cruel sound. You know what your mistake was? You assumed that being good at violence means we're not good at anything else. Let me tell you something about humans. We're good at everything we put our minds to. Science, art, music, literature, philosophy. We just happen to also be really, really good at war. Back on the bridge, Commander Barnes was continuing his conversation with Research Prime Veltar. The Zephyrian leader was beginning to understand that he was not in control of this situation and probably never had been. How long have you known we were watching you? Veltar asked. Kyle smiled. About 6 weeks. Your ships aren't as stealthy as you think they are. We've been monitoring your surveillance for quite some time. When we realized you were planning to board one of our vessels, we decided to give you the opportunity. This ship volunteered for the mission. Volunteered? Veltar was confused. The crew of the Defiant specializes in contact situations with unknown species, Lisa explained. We train for scenarios exactly like this one. First contact, hostile boarding actions, intelligence gathering, it's what we do. Lieutenant Amy, Ross looked up from her communication station. Commander, I'm picking up movement from the other Zephyrian ships. They're trying to move into position to rescue their people. Kyle nodded calmly. Put me through to all Zephyrian vessels. The communication screen split to show the command centers of all 3 alien ships. Kyle could see the confusion and fear on the faces of the Zephyrian officers. They had come expecting to study primitive humans, and instead they had found themselves outmaneuvered by a species they had completely underestimated. Attention, Zephyrian fleet, Kyle announced. Your research teams are currently our guests aboard the UHS Defiant. They are unharmed and will remain so as long as this situation stays peaceful. However, I want to make something very clear. This ship is now operating at full combat readiness. We have weapons that can destroy all 3 of your vessels simultaneously. We also have defensive systems that you haven't seen yet. To prove his point, Kyle gave a hand signal to his tactical officer. The Defiant's main guns swiveled to track all 3 Zephyrian ships at the same time. Energy readings spiked as the weapons powered up to full charge. We don't want to fight you, Kyle continued, but we're very good at it if that's what you choose. Your scientists wanted to examine a human warship. Well, this is what a human warship looks like when it's ready for battle. The question now is, what are you going to do with this information? The Zephyrian fleet hung motionless in space, their commanders realizing that they were completely outmatched. They had come to study humans, but the humans had been studying them right back. The examination was continuing, but the roles had been permanently reversed. Research Prime. Veltar looked at the human commander on his screen and understood that his species had made a very dangerous mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were learning why that was such a bad idea. The standoff lasted for 8 long hours. During that time, The crew of the UHS Defiant treated their alien guests with professional courtesy while making it very clear who was in control. The Zephyrians found themselves experiencing human hospitality at its most efficient and terrifying. Dr. Ford had set up a complete medical examination station in the ship's main conference room. Dr. Yelkos and his team sat at a long table while human medical scanners recorded every detail of their biology. The aliens were learning what it felt like to be studied without their permission. "Your cardiovascular system is fascinating," Dr. Ford said as she reviewed the data. "Two hearts, but they're much smaller than a human heart. Your species evolved on a low-gravity world, didn't you? That would explain the hollow bones and reduced muscle mass." Dr. Yelkos shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "This information is supposed to be confidential. Our biology is not for other species to study." Dr. Ford looked at him with a raised eyebrow. "Really? Because you seemed very interested in studying our biology a few hours ago. What changed your mind?" Meanwhile, Chief Pete Morgan was giving Dr. Hexmore a complete tour of human engineering technology. The alien scientist was taking notes as fast as he could, but he was clearly overwhelmed by what he was seeing. "Your fusion reactors," Dr. Hexmore said with amazement. "They're designed to operate even if 70% of the control systems are destroyed. This is incredible redundancy." Pete nodded proudly. "Every human ship is built to keep fighting even when it's falling apart. We learned that lesson the hard way during the Frontier Wars. A ship that can't fight when it's damaged is a ship that gets everyone killed." "But this level of redundancy must be incredibly expensive," Dr. Hexmore protested. "Surely it would be more efficient to simply avoid combat situations," Pete laughed. "Doc, you can't avoid trouble in space. Trouble finds you whether you want it or not. Pirates, hostile aliens, solar flares, black holes, mechanical failures. The universe is trying to kill you every second of every day. Our ships are built to tell the universe to go find someone else to bother." In another part of the ship, Sergeant Jake Collins was having a cultural exchange with Zekville and the other young Zephyrian scientists. The aliens were fascinated by human military culture, though they clearly didn't understand it. "Your species trains every individual for combat," Zekville observed. "Even your scientists and engineers carry weapons and know how to fight. This seems very inefficient." Jake was cleaning his rifle while he talked, his hands moving with the practiced ease of someone who had been a soldier for 15 years. "Kid, let me tell you something about efficiency. You know what's really inefficient? Getting killed because you can't defend yourself. Every human learns to fight because every human might need to fight someday. But surely your leaders could negotiate peace with hostile forces," another young alien suggested. Jake looked up from his weapon with a grin that was both friendly and terrifying. "We try negotiation first, always, but negotiation works a lot better when the other guy knows you can back up your words with action. Peace through strength, we call it." On the bridge, Commander Kyle Barnes was engaged in the most important conversation of all. Research Prime Veltar had finally agreed to direct communication, and the two leaders were discussing the future of human-Zephyrian relations. "I must admit," Veltar said over the communication link, "we seriously underestimated your species. Our initial assessments were completely wrong." Kyle leaned back in his command chair. "The question is, what are you going to do with the correct information? Are you going to file a report that says humans are dangerous primitives who should be avoided? Or are you going to tell your people that we're a species worth talking to?" Captain Lisa Grant stepped into view behind Kyle. "Prime Veltar, we know. Your people have been watching us for months. We know you've been studying our ships, our colonies, our trade routes. The question is, why? What do you want from us?" Veltar was quiet for a long moment before answering. "We wanted to understand you. Your species appeared in our region of space 50 years ago, and within a decade you had established colonies on 12 worlds. You build faster ships than ours, your weapons are more powerful, and your expansion rate is unprecedented. Frankly, we were worried." Kyle nodded slowly. "Worried that we might be a threat to you." "Yes," Veltar admitted. "Your species conquers Worlds the way other species explore them. We thought you might decide our territory looked interesting. Lisa stepped forward. Prime, let me be very clear about something. Humans don't conquer worlds. We colonize them. There's a big difference. We're not interested in taking worlds that belong to other species. The galaxy is big enough for everyone. But your military capabilities, Veltar protested, they far exceed what any exploration species would need. Kyle stood up and walked to the main viewing screen. Prime, let me tell you a story. 300 years ago, humanity sent out its first colony ship to a world we called New Eden, beautiful planet, perfect climate, no signs of intelligent life. The colonists landed, built their cities, started their farms. Everything was perfect. Kyle paused and his expression grew serious. Then the raiders came. Alien pirates who saw an easy target. They attacked the colony, killed half the population, and enslaved the rest. It took us 2 years to mount a rescue mission, and by then most of the colonists were dead. That's when we learned the most important lesson in human history, Lisa added. In space, being peaceful doesn't keep you safe. Being strong keeps you safe. Every human colony ship now travels with a military escort. Every human settlement has defensive systems. Every human citizen knows how to fight. We're not conquerors, Prime. We're survivors. Dr. Ford's voice came over the communication system. Commander, I've completed the medical examinations. Our guests are ready to return to their ships whenever you give the word. Kyle looked at Veltar on the screen. Your people are free to go, Prime. We've learned what we needed to learn about each other. The question now is, what happens next? Veltar was quiet for a moment, considering his options. What do you propose, Commander Barnes? I propose we start over, Kyle said. Real first contact this time. Your people want to study us, and we're willing to cooperate. But it goes both ways. We want to learn about your culture, your technology, your history. We do it openly, honestly, with respect for each other. And if we refuse? Veltar asked. Lisa smiled, but it was not a warm expression. Then you file your report, warn your people to stay away from human space, and we all go our separate ways? But Prime, consider this. You came here thinking you were studying primitive warriors. Instead, you found a species that's been 3 steps ahead of you from the beginning. Which version of humanity would you rather have as neighbors? The alien boarding teams were returned to their ships through the same airlocks they had entered. But they were not the same scientists who had boarded the Defiant 18 hours earlier. They had seen human technology, experienced human tactics, and learned what it meant to be on the wrong side of human strategic thinking. Dr. Kexhai was the last to leave. As he stepped through the airlock, he turned back to Commander Barnes. Your species, he said quietly. You are not what we expected. Kyle smiled. Doctor, we're exactly what you should have expected. You just didn't know what questions to ask. Next time, try talking to us instead of trying to study us like lab animals. You might be surprised by what you learn. As the Zephyrian ships departed, Kyle stood on his bridge and watched them go. The encounter had achieved everything he had hoped for. The aliens now understood that humanity was not to be underestimated, but they also understood that humans were willing to be reasonable if treated with respect. Think they'll be back? Lieutenant Amy Ross asked. Kyle nodded. They'll be back, but next time they'll come to talk, not to examine. And that, Lieutenant, is how you turn potential enemies into potential allies. The UHS Defiant resumed its patrol, leaving behind a galaxy that had learned an important lesson. Humans were not primitive warriors or simple conquerors. They were something much more dangerous and much more valuable. They were survivors who had learned to thrive in a hostile universe, and they were willing to teach that lesson to anyone smart enough to listen.